Small steps, real life, your best self, one day at a time. There is nothing wrong with you. When was the last time you told yourself that you weren't enough? Most of us believe that there's something wrong with us, but it's not. And we're going to talk about that today on this episode of One Day at a Time. I am your host, Mark's President, and we're going to get into it. Now, the first step in understanding what's going on with you is to identify with that inner voice, what I like to call the inner critic. That's the voice that's telling you that you're not good enough. That's the voice that's telling you that you can't do it. This is the voice that's always going to be going at you in a negative manner. Now, this isn't natural. This is a situation that's learned. And it usually comes from like your family, your culture, or maybe your experiences. But the one thing to understand is the one job of a critic is to always leave you doubting yourself. Now, what you got to do is be aware of when this inner critic speaks. You know what I'm saying? And you got to be aware enough to create space so you don't have to believe every thought. You got to pause and think to yourself, like, whose voice is this anyway? Is it really mine? You also got to use compassion as an antidote, Like, self-hate will never be solved with self-hate. Know that. Two negatives will never create a positive. You got to understand that. The true healing comes from self-compassion and kindness, how you are with yourself. You understand? I encourage you to speak to yourself like you're speaking to your best friend, because in all reality, you are. Now, I'm going to give you some tools to help you with this, like journaling. You might want to write down what that critic is saying and then write the flip side of it. Write something positive about it. You know what I'm saying? Take the devil's advocate approach in these situations. You got to notice that inner dialogue inside yourself without judging yourself. We're going to always be the hardest critics on ourselves. And that's why we got to be in touch with how we really feel about ourselves. I know it's hard and I know it's easy to doubt, but you got to believe, because as long as you believe, you got opportunity to keep moving forward. You got to replace them harsh thoughts. Like, you got to believe that you're doing your best. But within you believing that you're doing your best, you have to actually be doing your best. You know what I'm saying? You gotta pause and react to self-criticism. You gotta breathe. You gotta reset. You gotta get yourself together, because once these thoughts start taking over, like I tell people, once you get down and you really down, it's hard to get back up. You just don't know. Now, you got to remember that you don't have to be fixed. You just got to remember who you are. The true nature is already whole, creative, and compassionate. You know what I'm saying? You got to know that. And you truly, in your heart, got to know this journey isn't about becoming worthy. It's about realizing that you already are. Now, the next step, let me pull it up for you, is self-acceptance and the importance of trusting yourself. Now, accepting yourself doesn't mean that you're giving up on growth. It just means that you're starting from a place of honesty and compassion. Self-acceptance equals recognizing your strengths and weaknesses and imperfections without judgment. The foundation for real change, you can't grow from a place of self-rejection. You got to remember that. Now, you might ask why self-acceptance matters. You know what I'm saying? That's going to reduce the inner conflict and stress. You know what I'm saying? And what I'm saying is that's going to stop the inner fighting within yourself. You know what I'm saying? I would like to say your conscious and your subconscious. It's going to help you build resilience and make, mistakes become lessons instead of proof that that critic is saying that you're not enough. And it also creates confidence. You're no longer seeking that constant outside validation, and that is important. Now, next, you're going to have to trust yourself. And when I'm saying that trusting yourself is about believing that you can handle life. You know what I'm saying? The decisions, the mistakes, the success, the downfalls, everything. You have to trust that within yourself. When you trust yourself, you rely less on the external shit and more so about the inner wisdom. Trust won't grow from experience. Like you ain't going to know until you go through it. You feel me? And every time you make a choice, you're going to have to honor that. You have to, without a doubt, honor that choice, because that's how you build that self-belief in yourself. That's how you believe. That's how you start your self-trust. Don't say nothing that you're not going to do. And now you're going to have to identify those barriers of self-acceptance and trust. That voice saying that you're not compatible or worthy, comparisons to others, and unrealistic expectations. I know I'm not the only person that make unrealistic expectations on themselves, and past failures that you mistaken as identity instead of experience. Like, stop being so hard on yourself. Now, how you going to strengthen both of them is things like, I would like to say, self-reflection. You know what I'm saying? Notice when you're being hard on yourself and take that breath. You have to celebrate these small wins. Y'all don't realize that small wins become big victories later in life. Don't never gloss over anything that you've accomplished. You got to have that positive self-talk with you. Like I said in the first episode, like Saray said, as I talk to you, I talk to myself. A lot of the times, that's just what it is. Like sometimes the only person you're going to listen to is you. Like how many times have people told you things and you done sat and you done listened and then you did the complete opposite, But I digress, Next is boundaries. Please honor your own boundaries. Trust yourself. Trust the boundaries. You have to. And just be mindful. You know what I'm saying? It helps you tune in your inner voice instead of that critic and all that outside noise. Like sometimes you got to turn the noise down. You can hear things a little bit clearer. You feel me? And to end this out, some key takeaways in this episode is self-acceptance and self-trust work hand in hand. Accepting yourself frees you from constant self-judgment, and we can't have that. Trusting yourself also allows you to move forward with confidence and peace. And we all out here trying to get that peace in our life, And they can create a strong foundation for living authentically and joyfully. And that's all we really need. You have to get this inner critic. And you got to get that, as they say, that monkey off your back, because this is all us. If you don't take care of you, how are you going to take care of somebody else? And how are you going to know how to tell somebody to be able to take care of you? You got to remember, what you're doing to yourself right now is teaching people how they're going to treat you later in life. I'm just saying.